Hi, I'm Chris Botten, County Councillor for Caterham Hill and Children, District Councillor for Portley Ward for over 20 years and Leader of the Opposition on Tandridge District Council. Last week Martin Fisher, the Leader of the District Council, gave a very articulate interview in which he set out his vision to deliver a local plan by allowing a garden village to be built somewhere in the south of the district. Now, it's a matter of public record that I have, as Leader of the Opposition, supported that vision, but I want to make it clear that my support is not unconditional, and it's conditional on a number of factors. I think I'll say a little bit about the context, if I may. Many of our residents don't know which particular authority delivers particular services to its residents, because we have a three-tier system. We have a county council, we have a district council, and we have parish council. And in order for that system to be sustainable, each of those elements, each of those authorities has to justify its existence to residents by adding value. Each of them has some statutory functions to deliver. As we know, county council has to deliver adult social care, which is the main drain on its budget. It also has to deliver highways, which, as you know, is not delivering very well at the moment. The district council has to deliver housing and collect the bins, not in themselves particularly onerous, you would think, except of course that the housing in Tandridge is very constrained by the high property values, which make it very difficult for young people to get a foot on the ladder, and make it very difficult for the district to house people who are made homeless. That's in the context of the district council having been unable, until very recently, to build homes and to build affordable homes. So my first challenge, in order to sustain my support for the vision of the garden village, is that the district council must add value to its communities in order to sustain its existence, or we'd be looking at merging the district with the county and maybe making efficiencies of chief executives and officers and all those other things that we might look at. But if the district council continues to add benefit to its communities, then that justifies its existence, and that to a certain extent justifies Martin Fisher's vision for the local plan. So I've made my support for that vision conditional on some key factors, and I'll just set out briefly what they are. The first issue is that the garden village must deliver benefits for the people who currently live in its environs. If they're going to build a garden village around an existing settlement in Tandridge, the residents of that settlement are entitled to expect that their lives will be enhanced, that their property values are likely to be increased, and that their environment will be significantly better. And I shall be fighting to ensure that wherever this garden village is decided upon, the residents will benefit in the medium term. It may be difficult for them to feel the benefit in the short term because there'll be lorries and other things going on. But I want them to have extra primary care, proper primary care facilities, a primary school, a secondary school, enhanced leisure facilities, and an environment in which I would wish to bring up my children. So that's condition number one. Condition number two is that residents of the whole district must benefit from the infrastructure investment that is brought to justify this garden village. Now, the sort of thing I'm thinking about is obviously that if there is more primary care, a secondary school in the new settlement, that will provide more choice, take the pressure off existing services within Tandridge, and the benefit will be felt by my residents in Caterham. But more fundamentally than that, there needs to be some much more visible infrastructure investment, because we are desperately creaking here. We know that some of our infrastructure simply isn't sustainable in the short term. The prime example in respect of the garden village development will be the enhancement of Junction 6 of the M25, where we know that it's possible because of the ownership of the land around the roundabout being with Highways England. We know that it should be possible to enhance that junction by increasing the number of lanes in the roundabout, by increasing the number of lanes on the slip roads to relieve congestion. But we also know that we need to enhance the A22, and we need to enhance the associated roads so that the traffic generated by the new settlement will not impact negatively on residents who live elsewhere in the district, such as in Oxford, in Caterham, in Warlingham and so on. Now that represents a very significant investment, and we know that if the developer who is successful secures permissions to build 4,000 homes, we know that they have the capital, or they will have the capital to do that, and will have to hold the developer's feet to the fire to ensure that those benefits accrue. Without that sort of investment, it would be very hard to see how we can justify a garden village. But let me go back to the government policy on housing. We know that because Tandridge's houses are among the most expensive in the country in respect of average earnings, we know we have to build. We know we have to build somewhere where young people will be able to get on the ladder. But Caterham has been badly betrayed by the previous local plan in 2008. We've had random infill development, we've had major developments, none of which has resulted in infrastructure benefits for Caterham on the Hill. Just look back to that flood event in June 2016. We know the sewers failed, we know the drains failed, we know the highways failed. And we know, at least I believe we know, that many of those failures were occasioned by random, unplanned development over the years, which have resulted in a greater density, but have failed to produce an enhanced sewage system, an enhanced drainage system, and enhanced highways to manage the impact of those developments. Now, there is no capital in County Council at the moment to improve the drains and the highways. We know that Thames Water, which manages the sewers, is reluctant to invest in new sewage and new drainage systems. So we have to provide some form of civic leadership to take the opportunity to grab whatever capital we can get so that the deficit that we feel here can be remedied in the medium term. And that teaches us a fundamental lesson. There can never be a deficit in the future with regard to infrastructure because it's very, very difficult to repair it afterwards. So whatever happens in the future, wherever the garden village is developed, the infrastructure must be sufficient to sustain the population and the strain on services into the future for a long term, for 100 years. That's when many of our sewers were put into place, after all. And when the money pit was put into place in Caterham on the Hill, probably some 50 or 60 years ago, it had no capacity to manage the infrastructure change that we've seen in the last 20 years since I've been a district councillor. So my support for the garden village is conditional on a number of issues and a number of lessons that we have to learn as a community, as a district council, and even as a county council, if we're to go forward and protect our residents from the depredations of flooding and give their lives a real enhancement, which is what we so desperately deserve.